Welcome back to the GCN Racing News Show. Coming up today, records set at the Cyclocross National Championships. We have some racing on the road from the Bay Crits, more new 2022 team kits, and another transfer rumour, yes, in January. Plus, the Zwift Racing League is starting tonight. This week in the world of racing, we learned that racing on the road is back. The Bay Crits in Australia are always fast and frantic, and this year was no different. On Saturday, Simon Clark, currently in search of a new contract, made an attack midway through the race, taking a small group away with him. They were eventually reeled in though, and a great lead out by informed TMX Make delivered Blake Quick to the win. The following day, Bentley Nikke Oldham was away solo midway through the race before pushing it too hard and crashing out.
Yesterday, I didn't see much.
No.
Oh, you know what? I thought he took this corner.
He was going very quickly there. That's a real shame.
Oh dear.
Ooh, ouch. What remained of the bunch came towards the line for a sprint, and it was a case of deja vu, with Brenton Jones leading out quick to the line for a second successive win, and with it, the overall. In the women's, there was also double trouble for Ruby Rosman Gannon of Lexus of Blackburn, who usually rides for Bike Exchange Yako. She did this though in very different style to the men's. On Saturday, an attack from Grace Brown animated the race, but ultimately it came down to a reduced bunch sprint, won by Rosman Gannon. The following day, she went clear with Matilda Reynolds just after the midway point, easily sprinting to the win at the finish. They may not be the biggest races in the world, but it sure is great to see some road racing back on the screen. And there's more to come in Australia this week with the National Championships, which I'll give you details of later on. I'll move on to cyclocross now though, as there is a lot to get through, with most of the National Championships taking place over the weekend. Records were set by Sana Kant and Christine Meirus, who both took their 13th consecutive Elite National Championship wins in Belgium and Luxembourg respectively. 13! That is bonkers. In the Belgian men's, Wout van Aert started off as the big favourite in what was his last race of the season, and he didn't disappoint, taking the lead by the first corner as they flew up the first climb at warp speed. Check this out. Van Aert soon had a gap over the rest, a gap that was up to 1 minute and 16 seconds by the finish, with Laurens Sweeck in second and Quentin Hermans taking his first ever Elite National Championship medal in third. That rounds off what was a very short but very sweet cyclocross campaign for Van Aert. He'd won the X20 Badkamers Trough on Wednesday over a minute clear of Pidcock, and so ends the season, having won 9 of the 10 races he started. It was during his post-race interview on Wednesday though that he announced he will not be participating at the World Championships in Fayetteville at the end of the month.
It's a hard decision, of course. I mean, cyclocross is it's really important to me, and I really enjoyed the previous races I did. I think also my shape is really good. But in this point of my career, we're focusing also on other things. I'm aiming to win a monument in the spring, which I missed out the previous years. So in looking to that, we think it's better to finish my cross season after nationals this Sunday, and afterwards focusing on the road races.
Meanwhile, in the other specialist cyclocross country, the Netherlands, Lars van der Haar continued his brilliant season with a solo win in Rockven, whilst Marion Vos managed to turn the tables on Lucinda Brandt to take her 7th national cyclocross title in the women's. Amongst the riders to retain their titles were Blanca Vass in Hungary, Marcel Mason and Elisabeth Brandu in Germany, Philip Orts in Spain and Kevin Kuhn in Switzerland. Here in the UK, Harriet Hardeman and Thomas Main became elite champions. In the women's, Anna Kay took the early lead but was soon caught and passed by Harriet Hardeman. She was pushed close though, not so much by Kay but by Annie Last, who took the silver medal 15 seconds behind Hardeman. Maybe it's time for Tom Last to make a comeback. He can take on the veterans category fairly soon.
It was all right, I thought it was the top.
In the men's, in the absence of Tom Pidcock, we had a ding-dong battle between Cameron Mason and Thomas Main. The two shared the lead the whole way through the race, and ultimately it was a mistake by Mason that allowed Main to open up a gap in the closing stages of the race, a gap which Mason was unable to close despite his best efforts. Moving on, and we just have the one cyclocross race coming up for you on GCN Plus this week, the penultimate round of the UCI World Cup from Flamanville, right up the coast of northwestern France. Elie Iserbyt has already sealed the overall classification in the men's, but of course, the race win still carries a lot of prestige with it. Those races will be available to watch throughout Europe, except for Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Italy and Belgium. So, a quieter week of cyclocross racing as we gear up towards the Cyclocross World Champs in Fayetteville, but we've also got our first road races. This week is the Australian National Championships, which we have live in all GCN Plus territories except for Australia. It'll be a great opportunity to take a first look at some of the new pro team kits in action and also some of the best riders in the world. On Friday, it's the Criterium Champs. Saturday, the Men's Under-23 Road Champs. And then on Sunday, the Blue Ribbon events, the elite men's and women's road races. If you're in Europe, most of these races will be live in the middle of the night. But if you don't fancy losing sleep, they'll also be available for you to watch on demand once you wake up. Before all of that though, the next series of the ZRL or Zwift Race League starts tonight, right here on GCN Racing YouTube channel. And we have some stars of the road on show for you. Canyon SRAM are fielding a team for the series, and tonight you'll be able to watch Neve Bradbury, Ella Harris and Zwift Academy 2021 winner Maud the Beast Udeman in action as they take on the might of the Hino Racing team, who dominated the last women's series. Next, Esports and Canyon Esports are amongst the teams to battle it out in the men's events over 6 rounds. Round 1 tonight is short but intense, 25 kilometres around the Inokyo all-nighter course on Makuri Islands. Our coverage will start at 7 o'clock GMT tonight, so we hope you'll join us then. We're also hoping you'll have time to watch our latest documentary, Race Like a Belgium. This is a follow-up to Train Like a Belgium, which I know a lot of you loved, and this time we're following 28-year-old Eamon Lucas as he plies his trade in the famous and sometimes infamous Belgium kermesse scene. Here's a sneak peek.
He's always in front, you know, and yeah, everybody loves that, of course.
He definitely races like a Belgian.
Right now, every result is pretty crucial.
You should try harder.
There's some positive movement in a way of finding a pro contract again, so it's good.
The clock is ticking.
That brings back some memories, I've got to say. Belgium kermesse races are some of the toughest I've ever done, full on from start to finish. And I actually remember Eamon when I lived out in Belgium myself, great chap. Anyway, that full film is available as of today on GCN Plus, so make sure you check it out. Moving on to other news, and it's probably time to take a look at some more 2022 team kits, isn't it? Now, I have to confess, I wasn't expecting much from Team Cofidis. Their kit seems to have pretty much been the same for as long as I can remember. But then I saw this. He was pleasantly surprised as I am. I really like that jersey, modern but clean. The only thing I would say is that there are a lot of teams who've gone for white shoulders this year, which could make it difficult to pick them out from those headshots we get in races. But I'd say that's an 8 out of 10 from me, maybe even a 9. The long-rumoured link-up, though, between Premier Tech and the Israel Startup Nation has finally happened, and they will therefore now be known as Israel Premier Tech. Jakob Fuglsang and Hugo Huhl were the 2 riders who came over from what was Astana Premier Tech, which is partly where that rumour started. This is what their kit will look like this year too. Not too dissimilar to last year, but I like this one too. I think it's smart, especially with a new geometric style on the bottom. One rider rumoured to be signing for the team at the last minute is Australian Simon Clark. He is one of the riders left without a job after the demise of Quebec and Next Hash. But that sounds like it may soon change, according to an article on Cycling News. There's also a new kit for Drops Le Col because they have a new headline sponsor and name. If the response to our tweet was anything to go by, that's a scorching hot kit. There has been an update on Amy Peters from her team SD Works. The Dutch rider has now been transferred to the Netherlands from Spain by plane. In a statement from the team, they said that Peters is now breathing independently and the sedation has been reduced. Her situation is stable but unchanged, and only when the rider wakes up can medics get a first impression of the consequences of the fall. All our thoughts are still with you, Amy. Stay strong. The route for this year's Paris-Nice was announced last week, and it follows the fairly traditional format. 8 days starting near-ish Paris with a short individual time trial on stage 4 and a mountaintop finish up the Col de Torini on stage 7, likely to shape up the general classification. However, the win almost always hinges on the final stage around Nice, and this year it will be no different, particularly as they're scaling the harder side of the Col de Ayers, which marks the final climb. Primoz Roglic, Egan Bernal and Wout van Aert are amongst the stars who have already confirmed their participation at what will be the 80th edition of the race. And of course, we'll have live coverage of it on GCN+. The news that Van Aert is competing there means that we won't see him at Strade Bianche, which I'm pretty gutted about. He's taken a different approach towards the Classics this year, which his team and he hope will see him peaking at the right time rather than too early. The right time being early April for the Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix. Although with those two races separated by 2 weeks this year, timing your peak could still be tricky. The Vuelta a San Juan, which last week Dan said was rumoured to be cancelled, has indeed now been officially cancelled. A real shame, although on a positive note, it does mean that more of cyclists' biggest male stars are now likely to converge on one of the early season European stage races. One of the riders who was due to start their season in Argentina was Peter Sagan, and he hit the headlines last week after testing positive for COVID for the second time. On another positive note, if you'll pardon the pun, Specialized has shown us what his bike will look like this year, and I have to say, this is pretty nice that. On top of all of this, here is his new jersey. I'm on the fence with that one though. It's not blowing me away, but I really hope to see Sagan back to his best this year. Talking of rider programmes for the year, Tom Dumoulin will be back at the Giro d'Italia for the first time since 2019, although it feels longer, doesn't it? He'll also be targeting the general classification there 5 years after he won his only Grand Tour. Great news, I'm sure you'll agree. It's good to see Tom back. And we'll be back this time next week, not at the Giro d'Italia, but for the Racing News Show. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. See you, folks.